The permitting process is the procedure where the contract documents that your engineer did for you go through the city in order to get your permit. It starts at the time that your contractor gives the contract documents to the city and ends when they give you a permit. You've probably heard the horror stories about the permitting process here in South Florida, and it takes an enormous amount of time to get things done. The fact is that having an experienced engineer on your side is critical in avoiding the problems in getting things done and getting a permit. The building department in reality is your friend and are typically very helpful. Well, unless you're going about things the wrong way or trying to cut corners. Here is the basic permitting process in a nutshell. Your contractor takes the contract documents to the city where he will fill out a permit application and provide the city with a copy of his license and his insurances. The plans at the city go through a process where it goes through a review with the structural reviewer. In the last 10 years, we at G. Batista & Associates have worked in every city in South Florida, and we've established a face-to-face contact with these reviewers in order to expedite the process and to avoid misunderstandings during review and during the construction. Once you get the permit, then you attain step 7, which is the approval. Actually, this is not really a step, but a milestone. When attained, you can begin construction. Construction is by far the most difficult, time-consuming, and stressful part of the entire process. Concrete repairs are not cheap and are very disruptive to those living in the building. Through the years of doing this, I've learned that the best way to begin the process is for landlords, owners, associations, and condo boards to educate the residents on what concrete spalling is and the process for repairing it. This is the main reason that I made this video, as an educational tool first. I'm not saying that all your issues will go away by educating the residents, but it will go a long way to allay unfounded fears, which, in my experience, cause so many problems with the residential community. So here we go to step 8, construction. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Nothing that I can say or do in this video will prepare you to deal with all the issues that can arise during the construction phase of your process. Every project is different and has their own set of problems. This is where a good engineer comes in handy, who has knowledge and experience to protect your interests. One that not only has experience in engineering, but also in construction. Nonetheless, you should know the basics about the construction process that apply for the vast majority of concrete repair projects. And that's what this next section is all about. Project manager, or owner's representative. Whatever the case may be, here in South Florida, this is the basic rundown of how projects are typically set up. Certain cities will be a little different, but the basics of the process hold true. Your contractor is working on our little repair project in the building up there in the scaffold. As your contractor is working, the city is performing their inspections. But the city relies heavily on the written inspection reports generated by your engineer upon each and every visit. But before I get carried away in explaining about the inspection process, you must understand that the concrete repairs require several steps that must be inspected. Your engineer is the person who is responsible that things get done right. You see, concrete repairs are not just chip and patch. There's a very specific methodology for these repairs, and strict quality control is required. It is the engineer's responsibility that this methodology is followed. There are certain basic and critical steps that must be taken for a proper concrete repair, and the engineer must inspect each step along the way, because at the end of the project, the city will require that he certify the work that was completed. Let's take a look at the very basic repair process. Here we show a concrete slab that a portion of the rebar has corroded and the other portion is with good clean rebar. The process begins with removing the concrete with a chipping hammer to remove enough concrete to expose 6 inches of good clean rebar. We call this chasing the rebar. The contractor must chase this rebar until we get 6 inches of good rebar exposed. Your engineer will tell the contractor where he must stop or if he needs to continue chasing this rebar, even to the inside of the unit or the residence. This is where a lot of the problems begin. You see, the engineer does not have X-ray vision when he does his original quantification of damaged concrete. There's just no way he can precisely foresee the exact amount of concrete to chip out. The engineer mainly goes by judgment and experience to estimate the amounts to chip. It is only when the contractor takes an actual chipping hammer to the concrete that it is known exactly how much concrete is to be repaired. This becomes a big problem because most contracts are based on a unit cost, such as $100 a square foot for chipped concrete or $60 a lineal foot of chipped concrete. If the corrosion is found out to be worse than anticipated, then your budget will probably be busted. Hiring an experienced engineer cost overruns. After the contractor chases the rebar, he proceeds to clean the rusted rebar by any approved means, like a wire wheel or sandblasting. Sometimes, the rusting has eaten away at so much of the rebar that it requires complete replacement. That's up to your engineer to determine, but that's another story. Bottom line is that the more you wait to repair it, the more corrosion builds up and the more expensive it gets. Period. Your contractor then paints the surface of the rebar with an anti-corrosive material to protect it from continued corrosion. These chemicals are expensive, but they are applied to protect your repair investment. Finally, the contractor can stucco over the rebar and complete the repair. Now let's go back to our little construction project with the contractor up on the scaffold. The contractor chips out the concrete and an inspection takes place. Several inspections occur before your contractor is finally approved to cover up that rebar with stucco. Each and every time the engineer makes an inspection, the engineer must make a report approving or disapproving the work that has been performed. Not until everything is done correctly can the contractor cover the concrete with stucco. As the contractor performs the inspections, he generates a report that he will provide to the building department, so they will be updated as to the progress of the project. At the end of the job, the city will require that the engineer give them a signed and sealed certification stating that the work was done properly. If you educate your residents, have a good engineer on board, and have a good contract set up with a decent contractor, you are on your way to making this entire process less painful than it otherwise could be. But last, but certainly not least, there is the matter of maintenance. If your building is located in a coastal environment, corrosion and concrete damage is a maintenance issue. Through the years, I have seen over and over again residents and owners ignoring the telltale signs of spalling. The reality is that you don't have to be an engineer to know that you have a concrete problem. But if the problem lingers and is ignored, then the problem becomes much larger and much more serious and much more expensive. My personal recommendation is to have an inspection performed every year to 5 years to fix the problems as they arise. Now that you're a little familiar about the basics, I will now talk a little bit about costs. This is what everybody has on their minds, and with reason. Concrete repairs can be very costly. But this is the kind of thing that first should be performed as soon as possible. The worst thing you can do is kick the can down the road. It's ultimately a safety issue. And second, the repairs must be done correctly. Repairs that are not performed by professionals only make things worse because a simple patch will only hide the crack and not get rid of the corrosion, which will only worsen over time, making matters much worse. The reality about the financial impact is that your engineer can give you a budget estimate of the cost after he does his quantification. But the real quest. That is why we made this video. Here at G. Batista & Associates, we are experienced professionals that know what it takes to have a successful project. And it starts with getting informed. We know that you, as the property manager, association, or board, work hard to get things done right by your residents. We are here to help. Click on the link below to get a copy of our concrete repair manual for owners in South Florida, or visit the website and click on the publications link. You can also visit the website and obtain more information on the company and references. Thanks for watching.